Hello and welcome to our live crafting session this morning. Thank you so much for joining me. It is Monday the 22nd of August and my name's Jenny McCormack. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator and I'm based in the market town of Brackley, Northamptonshire, which is in the UK. So thank you for joining me. You may be joining me live, in which case do say hi so that I know you're here. You may also be watching on replay or catch up, either here on Facebook in my VIP group, on my Facebook page, or also on YouTube. Good evening to you, Kerry, and good morning to you, Scylla. It's a beautiful morning here. I've got my blinds closed with my lights on, so hopefully it's not too much shadowing going on. So our card design today is one that we're using at Coffee and Card. We did it on Friday and we'll be doing it again this afternoon in Toaster. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our punch. So I'm using our Starlit punch, which has these different sizes of stars on it, to create a stencil to which we used our blending brushes and inks to create this star background. Hopefully you can see that in the light there. And then what we're going to do is use the punch to punch out a few stars to add to this. And this card came about for two reasons. One is I wanted to do a masculine type card, or rather a card that would be suitable for sending to men. And also because here we've had, last week we had results of A-levels and GCSEs. And I wanted to be able to do a card so that people could send that to family members and friends to celebrate their exam results. So it was a twofold one, and that's what we're going to recreate this morning. So let me just get myself ready. So we're going to be using the punch, and to make life a little easier I'm going to be using a piece of our vellum, and the reason I've done that is so that as we do our stenciling you can see through the vellum where your stencil is already in place. So I'm going to start off by just popping my punch onto my piece of vellum like so. So that we create a stencil that we're then going to blend through. For this card this morning I've chosen this paper, and this is black with yellow stars. And so what I'm going to be doing is using a yellow background. So this is crushed curry. And I'm going to be using, I've got So Saffron and Mango Melody for my backgrounds. Okay. So there's my punched item, and I'm going to be stamping onto and using a piece of our basic white, which I'm going to blend over and then layer up onto one of our note cards. Okay, let me just find myself back on Facebook. Here we go. Morning, Babsy. So I've just got a piece of grid paper underneath. Here's my card that I'm going to create the background onto, and I've got a yellow brush. It's already got some yellow on from Friday, and all I'm going to do is take my created stencil and pop it across my sheet. I'm hoping you can see that. Obviously it's not very helpful that it's all white and clear. So what you want to do is make sure you're going off the edge of your card to make it look more natural. And the reason I've cut a reasonably large piece of vellum is so that you've got space to hold it and not get the ink around the edges onto your card. So, and because it's vellum, it's very easy to see to pop your piece back. So if I take that off, you can see my stars created there. And if I want to make it darker, just gonna pop this back in place. You could, if you wanted to, use some masking tape to stick this down, but I find if you've got plenty of vellum to hold on to, then it's not really necessary. Okay, so I'm going to actually step it up with a little bit more colour with Mango Melody. And I've chosen a single colour, but you could of course do multiple colours. Okay, so when you've got it to the colour that you want, you're then going to either rotate the card or rotate your vellum. You can see where the other stars are underneath, or at least I should say I can see them. And just want to bring this in, so I've got some different stars next to each other, and then continue that background. So you can do this with any punch, especially where you've got multiples, but if you had a single butterfly punch, you could punch maybe 2 or 3 butterflies at an angle on your vellum and use that. So now I'm going to turn this around. So one thing I would say is you want to make sure that your ink, when you're inking up, is always on one side of the vellum, because if you turn it over and you're pressing down with your stencil and your brush, you may transfer some of the ink from the stencil onto your card, and of course it'll be the outline of the star. Like so can you see how that's building up? Let's put this one here. So remember to start off the edge and then brush to one side, and I'm using a circular motion. You could use just a brushing motion, that would be absolutely fine, from one side to the other, like so. And then let's fill in this little gap here. Like so. So I'm thinking if you had hearts or butterflies, you could use our dragonfly punch. You could really use any of the punches. You could also use dies. So you could take a piece of vellum and pop some different shapes of dies or different sizes of flowers dies onto that and cut it out, and then use that as a stencil. And the good thing is you can reuse this over and over again. The ink will dry on the vellum, but when it's wet you could very lightly brush it off and then just reuse it. But what I would say is make sure that maybe you could mark this and say front or ink side or stencil up or something, so that any ink that you've used previously is not going to get transferred onto your background. Okay, so I think that will work in there. I think so. There we go. So a nice easy thing. There we go, and then we've got our stars. And if you wanted to, you could, I've got a little bit more mango on this now, so I could go back in and just make this one a little bit darker. Just watch if it's not in exactly the same place, that you're not covering the other side. Okay, so there's our cute little background. So you want to keep your vellum somewhere maybe where you keep templates or things like that, or keep it with your punch, it's entirely up to you. And then what we're going to do is take a piece of this patterned paper that I'm using and going to punch out the stars from this, and I can get quite close to the previous ones. Like so. Okay, so we've got a tiny little star. And also I'm going to pop this onto my background. So what I can do is punch this out in the centre. Just turn this over so that I've got some yellow stars I can use as well. So you don't have to use patterned paper. You could literally just use that colour. So that's going to go onto there. That's going to go onto our base card, and then we're going to add the stars and a sentiment. So I'm going to make this a congratulations card. So this is what we're recreating. So you want to make sure that the background design isn't too dark if you want to stamp straight onto the layer. Hi Stacey, hope you're well. Or obviously what you could do if your background was quite dark is you could just put a strip on top, but I do quite like the fact that it's flat onto there. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment first and then layer everything up and add my stars at the end. So I'm going for a congratulations. And I'll use this one here from Peaceful Moments. We've got quite a lot of congratulations sentiments and similar. So I'm going to pop that one on there. There we go. And because this is black and yellow, I am going to use black for my sentiment. As you know, I don't do that very often. Just going to try this out on my paper first. Okay, that works nicely. And the thing that I've taken to coffee and card as well is the alphabet set called Alphabest. So you could do congratulations and then somebody's name with the small characters. Just going to bring this down towards me. So, thank you. That's my UPS delivery. So let's layer this up first and then pop our stars on top. So as I say, you could use this for anything. What I am going to do actually is also add some stars to the inside of my card and to my envelope. So yeah, think about what punches you've got that you could recreate this with. I was thinking hearts would be perfect for a Valentine's, a wedding or an anniversary card, but you could use just shapes, but you could also use dragonflies, butterflies, flowers obviously would also work. You want a fairly simple outline, that is the thing. Okay, so the inside of my card, I'm just going to add a few more stars in this corner. Maybe just across like that. So I'm not needing to re-ink this, and I keep my brushes mostly one to each colour. So I have a yellow, a red, a pink, a green, rather than having one for every single different ink. And you can wash them as well. Let's pop another one on here, I think. Like so there's the inside of my card, and when I'm here, let's do the envelope. Like so. I think I've got enough on here to do that. It's just a hint, that's all we need. So, as I say, this would be nice in multiple colours as well. If you had a bigger card base, you could do, you could start and change the colour as you went along. Okay, so that's my envelope, my card base. Let's layer these up. So because this has got some cut out, I'm going to pop this on here first. Not quite sure why I turned that over. Good morning, Fran. You're up early again, but thanks for joining us. Just a little bit in those little gaps. So we've used punches to create, or a punch to create a template, Fran, and then we've used that as a stencil. So we're recreating this effectively. Go. Just take that out of the way, and then this can now go on top. So this is what we're doing at Coffee and Card this afternoon, and in our toaster sessions we're really lucky with our venue. So very often what we'll do as a group is we'll meet up for lunch first and then have our coffee and card session after, and that's exactly what we're doing today. It's just so nice to spend time with people and with each other. So I've got these, and I've also got the yellow stars that I punched out, and I'm going to pop these up with some dimensionals, like so. Let's use a standard one for that. I think it's going to be a warm day here for us today. Use a mini one for that, and if you haven't got our mini dimensionals, which are really useful for smaller areas, you can of course just cut one of our standard dimensionals in half. Morning, Brenda. Or you could use the edges. So I'm going to use a mixture of these, and in fact I'm going to put 5 on this one. And then I've also got some yellow star embellishments that I'm going to use. Sadly they're retired, but I thought they'd be perfect for this. And let's do a yellow, another yellow, I think. Here. No, onto black one. So, and I've got a tiny edge. I need to trim it down even. So it's another way of using your punches. It's always good to get as much use out of our products as we can. As I say, you could also use dies and create a larger stencil with your dies, because you could obviously cut it multiple times. There we go. Okay. And you could also stick any spare ones on the inside if you wanted to, or on your envelope. Okay, let's grab those stars and we're done. These ones here, resin stars embellishments. I've also got some dots, but I thought these little stars, so these are like crushed curry, nice of navy, poppy parade and evening evergreen. I just thought they would look quite nice. And that just finish it off. So we've got large and small. And let's put a large one in as well. And there we go. So I think that fits the brief of a card suitable to send as a mail card to a mail recipient, I should say. But also what I wanted to do is we'd be able to create cards for people celebrating recent exam results, or it could be passing a driving test, getting a new job, anything else like that. So there's our finished card. This was the one I created ready for our coffee and card sample. So I hope you like those, something slightly different. So this is the template, and you can see which side is the front. This is slightly duller because it hasn't got the full ink. So what I am going to do is write on here front, just so that I know if I'm using it, especially if I'm using it fairly soon after, any of this ink could be wet. It will dry eventually, but also what I've done is I've got one for each colour. So I've got a pink, a green, a yellow, a blue one for coffee and card, because obviously what you don't want to do is mix the colours unless that's your intention. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm off to just check on my daughter's horses, and I will catch up with you very soon. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you like the card design. I hope you give it a go using maybe some different punches, and if you do, I'd love to see the results. Thank you so much. Bye now. Take care. Happy crafting.